Greetings! Welcome once more to this Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to dive back into the sixth world? The world of Shadowrun? Because if you are, we're going to be heading back to Europe today. Visit Spain! It's a very interesting history. A difficult, dubious history, problem it's going through, and where it's heading today. We're ready to learn about Spain. We'll travel through time, space, the dimensions to there. I, your host and guide, Dracovin, can lead you there. Please do remember to give me a little bit of a tip. Remember to subscribe, it's a big one, like and ring the bell, and of course, let me know down below if you've got any experience with Spain in the sixth world. Let me know, or how you think it should evolve differently into the sixth world. All right, are you ready to go? Grab my hand. Portal's open. Let's get rocking and rolling. Chunk. Bam! We've arrived at the sixth world. Are you ready to learn about Spain? Because I know I am ready to talk about it. Where to start, though? Well, here's where to start. Shadows of Europe. Use that as your book. You're going to learn about it, dive into it. It's really the only book that talks about it. Unfortunately, we don't have any newer editions of stuff. We have bits and pieces of information spread across many different books about what's going on there after this book, but no big pictures. It's a pretty good picture. I'm going to be talking about a lot on all the information from there. All right? Ready? Cool. Let's dive in. Spain. Where to start? Well, it's not the same country we know it now. Spain has technically broken apart. One of its regions, called Peria, has actually split away into a separate country in the region. So it is not the same Spain as we know it completely. It is mostly the same, and a lot of stuff remains. Portugal, of course, remains its own independent things there, and they still have control of the Canary Islands. But it's a parliamentary monarchy with about, at the time of the second, third edition, about 38 million people, majority of which, about 78%, was human. There's some corporate affiliation, about 36%, about 30% below poverty. It's mostly Spanish-descended people with Spanish being the major language, with Catalan, Galician, and Euskarria being smaller spoken languages, with a pretty hefty percentage of 82% being Catholic there. That's an important thing to note. It will have an effect. Nuyen and Euro being the important currencies of the region. All right, now that we got the basics out of the way, let's talk about, well, what happened, because it went through a lot of things a lot of people did. Mother Nature, weird storms, toxic floods, nuclear meltdowns, extreme weather, severe droughts in the southern farmlands, the soils of the Asturia and Cantabria becoming barren, local economies impoverishing farmers, having to sell their lands and move out, ghettos in various cities swelling, Vitis hitting these regions incredibly hard then, because we're having these natural disasters forcing people into cities, and then Vitis happens in crowded areas. Yeah, the awakening sucked for Spain. Lots of growth in the northern areas, where encroaching on rural townships and urban areas. Some villages being completely overgrown. Residents fleeing to cities with strange new forests. A chain of earthquakes from 2016 to 2018, all across northern Spain, with a massive Santiago quake that opened a vast rift between the city and the ocean. In Santiago, slowly but sinking in elevation and vanishing under the waves a year later. So yeah, it took a year for Santiago to sink into the ocean, but it did. So all this is happening. This is our backdrop of Spain. Awful stuff going on here. Also during this time, Canary Islands are evacuated for a bio-warfare attack by an unknown party in 2007, which would take a massive amount of time before it was resettled. We'll talk about it. Now we have to talk about globalization and metahumans, because it gets worse. Remember what I said about the major religion of the country here being Catholic? Well, in 2012, the Pope decreed metahumans were demons and magic unholy. Yeah. The numerous devout and human Spanish Catholic population took it to heart. So, and because, remember I just said, a lot of shit was happening. A lot of horrible calamities were happening. Cities sinking into the ocean. Massive earthquakes. Cities villages disappearing under forests, massive areas where just all the ground just dies out. Meta-humanity was a scapegoat. It was just unfortunate that, so much of that was fueled by that. The Goblinization brought riots, witch hunts. It was horrible. Metahumans were run down by mobs, they were lynched. Some fought back, most fled. Galtica and Basque counties, which were a little bit more accepting, they fled to those regions. But central Spain, awful things happened. When Imago Dei was published in 2024, there was a schism that opened between the Spanish Church and the Vatican. The Spanish were finally forced to bow to the encyclical, the racism did kind of subside, but it still was there below the surface. And, it wasn't gone. The damage had been done. Basically, one person saying something awful opened up the floodgates of anger and hatred and wanting to blame someone for the bad things that were happening. And it was bad. So now we have the Vatican, the Spanish Church, and the Galtica Church all in conflict. And the crash happens. 2029. Country's a state of emergency. Riots break out. Poor takes to the street to protest the living conditions and impose curfews, demanding the government step down. Poverty-stricken Asturians and the villas of the wealthy were targeted as their security system failed. Impoverished Asturians. Police and military grids were brought down, destroying their coordination. It took weeks to quell the riots. And there were still sporadic battles and uprisings for years to come. Many of the rich areas abandoned their turbulent areas, fleeing to major cities, where there was some still semblance of control. Independent mind communities in Spain are political divisions like the states of the CAS. Like Escurgi, Cantabria Roja, and Gallica took the opportunity to announce their secessions. The new nation of Euskal Herria was formed with strong corporate backing, where Galicia retracted its position after obtaining special concessions from the government. So 2 of the states of Spain tried to succeed. One did, the other got bribed to stay. The political structure reorganized the aftermath, transforming into a mono-cameral parliamentary monarchy. The communities of Madrid, Castellón, and Mancha were directly under the government control and renamed the community of Castile. Through these changes, though these changes failed to appease dissidents, they received both church and corporate support, and the recovery of Spain's economy as the Euro Wars broke out helped to stabilize the nation. And then we get the 2 Euro Wars. And of course in 2034, where the Alliance for Allah invaded southern Europe for the Second Euro War. The second part of the Euro Wars. Spain underestimated the threat, and it posed by the poorly armed numerous enemies. They were invaded by a ragtag armada of Muslims from North Africa. The coast was overrun, and there was massive loss of life, fear, panic in the population. The Spanish troops were rapidly recalled from the Eastern Front, which they'd been helping at. Bolstered by mercenaries and allies, they rallied themselves to stop the invaders. The Church and the Crown called for basically a crusade, holy war. It's not going good. It's basically 2 religions clashing very openly at this point in time in this modern day. And it was a bloodbath. We have the, Muslims from the south, Catholics from Spain, and we're not playing nice. And, fighting did die down. When basically joint Spanish and British forces struck behind enemy lines and disposed the Moroccan fundamentalist regime, the invasion lost speed and was rapid. In the wake of this conflict, the Muslim community in Spain was ostracized, attacked, and contained, even when they vocally opposed the war, and took Spain's side. Many were relocated and rounded up with the invaders and sent out, who were ravaged Granada. And it wasn't good. Spain's rebuilding. They had a lot of crises, and Crisis once again revisited them. Visited Asturias. In 2046, community president Xavier Caldas embezzled money and then fled. So yeah, basically increasing besieged by forests in this region, the community exploded, a new strife, army was sent in, but basically weeks went on and they were forced to withdraw. Those who were left over fended for themselves, residents fled, and so nature's onslaught has swallowed the city. Only Dijon remains. So we get now and day. The surge happened. More riots, more racism, more mobs. And clashing with meta rights groups, anarchists, the police, Castilla becomes a virtual war zone when the homes of remaining metahumans, changelings, and Muslims were firebombed and mostly driven out. The death of King Felipe VI did not help. On May 5th, 2063, the country was rocked. His son, Prince Juanos Carlos, claimed to be heir apparent, was challenged when Alphonse, the Duke de Alba's ogre son, stepped forth and declared he was in fact Felipe's firstborn. He was presumed dead. Outrage erupted, because it's a metahuman taking the throne. Alphonse's claims were verified with genetic testing and collaborated with testimony from high-ranking officials. The Spanish announced their support for Juan Carlos and asked Alphonse to relinquish his claim. He refused. And guess what's happened? This is the only update we know about the history for Spain, and that is Alfonso was crowned. In 2063, in late July, Carlos rescinded his claim. His brother, Alfonso XIII, was crowned by Pope John the 25th on 2064. So, yeah. So, yeah. I think his brother didn't hate him and let him kind of get in there. It sounds like, his brother wanted maybe to help out, and having a metahuman on the throne is going to maybe cause some effects. Certainly hasn't broken apart Spain yet, but we'll talk about it when we talk about politics in Spain. Just know it, there's things going on now. We're in Spain! Let's talk about a couple cities. We can talk about a few of them here. We're not going to go to everything in every place in Spain. We know about a few of them. Madrid, it's a massive place, especially when people flee the countryside. It's over 8 million people now. It's a suburbia kind of surrounds the old city, separated from downtown by second city wall and 3 concentric rings of highways. It's polluted, it's ugly, it's confusing, it's poorly planned. They didn't really do a lot of good planning post the World War reconstruction, so there's a lot of dilapidated apartments that share next to corporate buildings. It's a mess. Barcelona is the richest city in the country. It's got a lot of clean, neat historic monuments, luxury yachts, chic restaurants, prosperity. So, yeah. It's also got the biggest black market for art in Europe. Dijon is under siege. Remember, it's what's left of that area that the forest keeps growing into because of the Sixth World. And so it's one of the major remaining settlements, with anarchists, smugglers, and old residents too stubborn to leave, being the only people left there. The Canary Islands were resettled in 2019 by a small army division. After the quarantine and, basically smallpox variant that was released there, tourism wasn't going to return. But a lot of the things related to globalization that happened, you know what happened in the Canary Islands? A lot of the orcs and trolls basically went there, to the islands. They were free of discrimination and hate. It was a safe haven for metas, so a lot of metas went to the Canary Islands. Criminal elements followed, too, because there's not a lot of strict law enforcement. There was pirates, smugglers, mobsters. The army kept the peace, but there was a lot of bribes going on. Eventually, though, a General Marta Ramos was basically put in charge of the island. She removed a lot of the corruption from the army, and basically she takes on the island's freebooters. Yeah, it's kind of gotten a problem. Las Palmas being the biggest city on the island there. Galtica is an island of tolerance within the country. Basically, they raised the banner of meta-humanity, magic, and welcomes both. They wanted to be independent from Spain, but they got special concessions that the leaders do not call for succession, basically. They are rude towards Spaniards from other communities, and are politically at odds with the rest of the nation. Santiago was their former capital that sank in the ocean, so, yeah. They've managed to salvage a lot from their business sense there. But, yeah. There's you go. There's a good picture of the cities, locations within Spain. Let's talk politics. And people, and a little bit of the culture that's kind of going on. To talk about politics, we have to know that there are a number of ruling parties. There are 3 major political parties, a number of smaller groups there, and some minor political clubs and stuff there. The actual ruling party is, I'm going to butcher this probably, Partido Monolítico, a centralist right-wing political force. There's some strong metahuman haters amongst them. Second is Partido Liberal, a Calian origin, which is an economy-centered party. And the third is the Partido Militar, which is endorsing the idea of initializing a military update with strong backing. They've been losing influence since basically Ibn Elsa's revival. Part of Verda, based out of Galtica, is an ecological party of more left-wing tendencies. They basically might be connected to Galcian Guterres cells, but, you know. That is the major chamber there, too. And, of course, you have the king, Alfonso XIII, an ogre, who's had a tumultuous rule. There's lost racism in the country. The country came close to civil war when his father died, and basically he ended up ascending to it. He's reached the Spanish throne, has been trying to be able to developing his functions the best way possible. And with his brother rescinding the claim, not going into a civil war, that did help in this case. So there's 2 separate chambers of the political system. Congress, one that rules over all the country, and they decide the laws that govern everyone. The president of the country is elected from this chamber. The second is the Senado, which is dedicated to representation of all, basically different autonomous communities. Each has 4 senators. This chamber is a center of strong corporate intrigue, trying to influence the government. Major corporations there, of course, are things like Ares Macro Technology, and a lot of them. Oh, we'll keep it the same. So there's kind of getting you an idea of the situation in Spain here. And I've kind of talked about how we do the politics here, the people, and what's going on. There are a lot of big poly clubs that have some influence here in various places. There's a local police, a civil guard, and a national police. Keep that in mind. And the Spanish church is still very strong. And the conflict with the Vatican really hasn't necessarily ended. And then, of course, you've got problems with Galcian church, too. It's a religious and political and mess. Anyway. Corporations. Ares Macro Technology, As Technology, Renraku, and Seder Krupp all have strong presence in the countries. For triple A's. For double A's, Medernal Agronomics, Sol Media, and Spanish Bank are pretty big. For crime, it's dominated by the, I'm going to butcher this one, Asociación Vasquez, who are a branch of the Spanish Mafia, a Spanish Mafia syndicate. And of course, there's also the Arabic Al-Kirab Aswad Miyad, and these 2 major groups are at odds with each other. Basically, they're a group that is a syndicate that got their influence in the region post-Euro Wars and just has been in the region since. There's also the Galcian Mafia, piracy, and a lot of the suburbs of Madrid. Remember I talked about how bad they are? Gangs. Good old gangs. Plenty of them. Whee! Anyway, there's our look at Spain. I could probably say some more, talk about some more things, different poly clubs, go into depths about how the religious organizations are going and battling out now, but just giving you the idea about what's going on will paint the picture of this. We are a nation that is heavily religious, that has kind of dove into it because of a lot of the problems that have happened. And we have regions of it that have gone away or become different because that religious sentiment has often, unfortunately, led to some pretty negative feelings because of some things that were said early on in the return of magic and globalization. Yeah, it didn't go well. And those sentiments that were basically opened up there, those wounds were never healed. Those wounds were created by someone else, by nature itself, and those wounds are deep. So the, basically, racism and hatred that exists deep within a lot of the Spanish population is a wound. Will it be healed ever? I don't know. Their current king may help solve that. It may help lessen that. And certainly new generations to come, getting into the 2070s, 2080s, might heal some of that. It might. The sheer fact that it's on the right path in a lot of ways. It's a country that has gone through and seen a lot of crap and has had a lot of problems. Entire cities sinking into it, ones disappearing to forests, entire regions losing their farmlands, people being driven into cities, various plagues, crashes, everything that's happened. They've remained mostly unified, mostly strong. They've rebuilt themselves, rebuilt their government, trying to do what they can. Is it always successful? No. But Spain is persevering. It's an interesting story of showing what has happened with the Sixth World and the ups and downs. There are certainly nations that have fared much better. There are certainly nations that have fared completely much worse. But Spain perseveres. And it's an interesting story to show how history and a level of unity keeps them. Hope you enjoyed learning all about it. You did. That'll be it. Please remember to check out all my other stuff, whether it's over me live on Twitch or over on the YouTube side. Updates, kind of schedules can always be put onto my social media, which will be linked below. If you're joining me on Twitch, you can always check me out live, doing videos like this, doing other things like live plays of TTRPGs, Fall of Avanswell, Wednesdays at 8. My talk show, discussing tabletop, Saturdays at 6. Those are great things to check out. Or if you just want to see me kind of gaming, hang out with friends, just chatting, always join me there. YouTube is where I put all my tabletop-related stuff. Probably eventually put together a VODs channel for other stuff. But if you just want to see my tabletop stuff, check out things like this, just go over to the YouTube side of things. But please do remember, do the YouTube stuff, make sure at least you're subscribed, like, ring the bell, and hey, what do you think about Spain? How do you think it might evolve? And have you had any adventures in your Shadowrun games in Spain? I'm curious as to what you think. Certainly speaking, with the new king in hand, maybe things will change for Spain. Maybe some of the influence of Galtica will kind of entrench deeper. Maybe some of those more negative things will start to be weeded out of the country and start to grow and evolve. Interesting to see what you think. Anyway, I'm going to get going, and until the next time, I bid all of you out there adieu and wonderful farewell.